Thank you. I'm Eric Schneiderman, the New York State Attorney General, and I am proud to be here today with a group of my colleagues in government and in the private sector as well, to announce that 6 months ago, when Sandy touched down, our office sent out notice to retailers all across the area that we were going to enforce New York's price gouging laws. Today we're announcing that we have already brought 29 actions for price gouging by gas stations. 25 of them have already settled and agreed to pay close to $170,000 in fines. We have 4 lawsuits that have been filed, one against a place across the river in Greenpoint, others on Long Island, and there are dozens of other investigations still underway. When Sandy hit, gas stations like the one behind us, which is not accused of any misconduct, were shut down for months. And some other retailers tried to take advantage of the situation, not because their wholesale price was going up, but just because people were online trying to buy gas to power their generators, trying to buy gas so that they could transport people who were in need of new housing or needed medical supplies. And we are here today to send the message that we will not tolerate that sort of conduct in the state of New York. We have a price gouging law for a reason. In times of crisis, it's important for New Yorkers to come together. And millions of people did come together to provide relief for the victims of Hurricane Sandy. We want to send a message to the small minority of folks who tried to make a fast buck through illegal conduct that will not be tolerated in New York State. This is not just a matter of saving a few dollars. Gasoline can save lives in times of crisis. La gasolina puede salvar vidas en tiempo de crisis. This is a matter of people being able to power generators so that hospitals and clinics could stay open, so that people that had to have access to power just to stay alive could have power. And again, the issue of transportation was vital for so many thousands of New Yorkers. New York's price gouging law is a powerful weapon, and I'm very proud of the work that the folks in my office did on this. The general business law provides that in a time of emergency, and the governor declared an emergency 3 days before the storm actually hit, in a time of emergency, you cannot charge unconscionably excessive prices. So what our office did was send out a letter the day before Sandy touched down, warning all the retailers in the state that we were going to be looking, and essentially what we do is look at the spread before the crisis between what you're paying for gas and what you're selling gas for, and the spread after the crisis. And the reason these cases take a while is we make sure we have all the records. This is done based on an empirical analysis, and unless you have some reason that your costs went up, you're not allowed to inflate your prices. It's very, very simple. We have more investigations underway. We have some with businesses other than gas stations. But we know from the lawyers who've been working on this and investigators, many of whom came from other parts of the state, because our downstate offices of the Attorney General were shut down for some time in Nassau, Suffolk, and Lower Manhattan. We had people in from Binghamton and Buffalo and Albany helping us policing these matters and making sure that New Yorkers weren't suffering any more than they had to. So I am very proud of the work that we've done, and I am pleased with these results. I look forward to being able to report more to you, but we're at the 6-month point this week of Sandy, and our work is succeeding, and our work is going forward, and we're here today to deliver the message that when a crisis hits, we need New Yorkers to pull together, not to seek to take advantage of each other. And now I'm honored to introduce a colleague in government who has been very involved in these issues, State Senator Brad Hoylman.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. You know, where we're standing today is where an enormous surge of water came on the first hours of Sandy, and we here were under, several feet of water. In addition to that, 25,000 residents live right across the highway here who were without electricity and heat for many, many months. And I commend the Attorney General for this investigation and for making certain that those who would try to profiteer off of a natural disaster and exploit fellow New Yorkers would be held accountable. You know, it's said that after the storm come the vultures, and that's exactly what happened here. I am shocked to have learned that some gasoline station operators were charging up to 500% more than the market rate. And in a time of crisis like a natural disaster, which was Superstorm Sandy, supply and demand do not apply. We need to come together, as the Attorney General said, as New Yorkers, and I think his settlement sends the correct message to not just gasoline station attendants, but all businesses and all New Yorkers that this type of unconscionable behavior will not be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. And now another great colleague in government, Assembly Member Brian Kavanagh.
Thank you. You know, as has been said, when we have environmental crises like this, like the storm, and I represent the district that runs from Delancey all the way up to the UN, and virtually all of my constituents were without electricity and without heat in many cases and without basic services. And that kind of event really challenges our basic sense of how much we rely on, you know, just the normal things that modern civilization bring. People were really struggling. People were really in jeopardy during that time. And I think the headline of that event for many of us was that so many people pulled together and did the right thing. In some cases, it meant volunteering, and in some cases, it just meant doing your job. If you're a retailer, providing people with the things they need. If you're an emergency service worker, doing what you have to do. But it's fortunate, we're very fortunate that the Attorney General of the state of New York was also on the job during that period. I think most retailers know ahead of time that this kind of thing is illegal during an emergency. I think the Attorney General gave them ample warning that it is illegal in this case. I think, though, that many retailers rely on the fact that these cases are just very hard to track. They're hard to prosecute. They're hard to demonstrate the harm because it has to be done retailer by retailer, site by site. So I particularly want to just emphasize, you know, it's tremendously difficult to do this, and the Attorney General and his staff and all of his lawyers deserve great credit for getting us to this point, and again, sending a clear message that maybe people will learn from next time. Thank you.
Thank you, and someone who's more or less our host here today because he lives very close to this location. And I do want to note that we are here on the property of Solar One that generates any electricity we're using today from the power of the sun, another good environmental program that's benefited from our aggressive efforts to promote solar technology. Our host and a great public servant, Assemblymember Daniel Garodnick.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Attorney General Schneiderman. I wanted to add my voice of thanks to you for the enforcement action that you were bringing, and also to add a little more local color to what Senator Hoylman already said. Where you all are standing right now in the height of the storm was deep, deep in the East River. The river went all the way almost up to First Avenue in this location, just to give you a sense. But that was not unique in New York City in terms of the devastation of Hurricane Sandy. The mayor just this morning indicated that the cost of damage to New York was $4.52 billion. And that is something that we are looking to get compensation for from the federal government. But most importantly, at that moment when New Yorkers were most vulnerable, it is simply sickening to know that there were gas stations and other businesses that were taking advantage of New Yorkers, considering the fact that many of the people who were actually looking to get gas were actually trying to help others. We saw that in the Rockaways. We heard about it in other parts of the city. So that's why this enforcement action was so important. And Attorney General Schneiderman, we thank you for that. And also know that your warnings before the storm, the fact that you have taken this enforcement action now, should serve as the proper warning to all those who would do harm to New Yorkers at the moment when they are most vulnerable, that they are not going to get away with it, and that this is a law that we're going to enforce. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And now two folks who represent a very important industry, the taxi industry. First, the great commissioner of the New York City Taxi and Limousine Commission, David Yassky. I have to make a special note here. Some of the folks that were victimized worse than anyone else were people in the taxi industry, the livery car industry. They provided vital transportation services to thousands of people. They worked hard hours. They had trouble getting gas in many cases. They were also one of the best sources of tips for those of us in law enforcement who are seeking to deal with the situation. So with that, let me introduce Commissioner David Yassky.
Thank you. I just simply want to add my voice too to say thank you, General Schneiderman, to you and to your superb staff. The Attorney General's office has partnered with the TLC and led the way on a number of fronts, and the city government in general, supporting our efforts and defending them. And I just want to thank you for this one, as Brian said, not just the enforcement action, but being on the spot in the first place. I think that the price gouging problem would have been a lot worse had you not been on the spot right there up front to tell people you're not going to get away with it. And now to back that up with these enforcement actions really makes the point. As you said, the taxis in those first few days after Sandy, when the subways were down, buses were down many places, the taxis and the livery cars, they were the only way for people to get around, the only way for people to get to the doctor and to get to their dialysis appointments, and the only way for people to get to the work that they needed to do. We needed them on the street, and they stood up. And and that was already with having to wait 2 and 3 hours in line to get gas. For people who had to wait in line to then have that add insult to injury by overcharging them is truly unconscionable. After Sandy, we saw that most New Yorkers said, "What can I do to help?" Here you have some unconscionable people who said, "What's in it for me?" And thank you, Attorney General, for making sure they get justice.
Thank you very much. And finally, a great New Yorker and a great advocate for the Livery-Based Owners Association, someone who has worked with us in many difficult circumstances and is always there to make sure that the industry cooperates with really my office, all in law enforcement and government, my friend Cira Angelis.
Thank you, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Today is a day of vindication for many drivers that were took advantage of in a difficult circumstances after Hurricane Sandy. And through their voice, through many voices that said, you know what, it's very difficult as it stands right now for us to be out there servicing the people, the elderly, the people who needed to get to their jobs, and there was no way to transport these people, and to come to a gas station and know that you're going to pay double and sometimes triple the price. It was really unacceptable. And I commend Eric Schneiderman and his office because they really took a stand and they said it's totally unacceptable that in a critical circumstances for New Yorkers that you do this. And it's not going to be tolerated. And really, this is just the beginning for any other situation in New York City where our drivers or our communities have to suffer because somebody is out there to make a buck. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cira. And